But there is a universal language, which is English, and there is an emerging universal language for value, which is Bitcoin. Try to take $1 billion worth of value from Tokyo to Hong Kong, from Hong Kong to London, from London to Brazil, without anybody even noticing. Look, we're not at $10,000 a coin anymore. We're much, much higher now. There could be an argument that you can make that this is already maybe in 2015 of the internet, right? You could make that argument. But then I go to other places like Tokyo at the airport, and I see people still thinking in terms of gold and cash, you know? And then I'm like, no, hell no, we're not there yet, you know? We're not there yet. We're not even near there yet. Anything other than Bitcoin is a shitcoin, anything. My favorite shitcoin among all the shitcoins is gold. I don't feel comfortable talking about Bitcoin in Persian, which is my mother language. I'm not comfortable speaking German about Bitcoin, which is actually, I speak German better than English and my mother language because I grew up in Germany, right? But I don't feel comfortable talking in any of these languages about Bitcoin. Why? Because I have learned most of what I've learned about Bitcoin in English. You know, all the books I read were in English, all the podcasts I've listened to were in English. So there's not much content now there is, thanks to, I don't know, Block Trainer, Nico, and all these guys. They're doing an amazing job. But back in 2017, when I started learning about Bitcoin, there was nothing about Bitcoin in German, almost non-existent, right? There was not much happening. So I think that that's probably also one of the main reasons.
Yeah, I never really consume German content about anything, like not even
Yeah.
even outside of Bitcoin. I usually tend to go default English. I don't know why. I think I made the switch, and then I was like, oh, like it feels good, and now it feels. I even chat with ChatGPT in English, just so you know.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Only English, even though it wouldn't make like a difference. I think.
I think on this topic, Robin, I think it is highly underestimated the value of being able to actually speak English. It's insane how the world actually opens towards you if you really speak like English well. Like, for example, I'm traveling right now around Asia, right? And wherever I go, I was in Hong Kong before I came here. I was in South Korea, and before that, I was in Hong Kong. And I was, going to so many places. And obviously, it's difficult to get around because not everybody speaks perfect English. But if you speak English, you can get things done everywhere. It's insane. Like, even if you go to really far, far away countries, nowadays when you speak English, like the entire world is open to you. You know, you most amount of content about most topics is mostly available, mostly in English, right? In any other language, it's very limited, right? So I think it's very underestimated, especially by people in my home country and in my and in the DACH region, because most Germans, they don't like speaking English, right? They're I have German friends who actually never got orange pilled because they could not speak English well, and they were just lazy to listen to English podcasts because that's not their native language, and there was not much in German either. So they were like, what can I learn about Bitcoin in German? I'm like, okay, read the Bitcoin Standard. There is a German version, and the German version, it's quite funny, by the way. If you ever have any German version of any English book, it's usually this much thicker than the original one, because we tend to overcomplicate things in German, right? This is I don't know why, like a simple thing you can say in English, we tend to really extend the words to 5 words instead of 2 words. So I don't know. It's you can argue it's a more complete language than English, but I don't know. It's just more complex.
100%. And I do hope I made the comparison now with like Bitcoin. I do hope we come to the same conclusion where Bitcoin is kind of the language of money that the Western world uses as a standard. There might be in the meantime still other things that people use, maybe in local towns, but the overall world standard will be Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, the thing is, people don't actually understand that actually that money is actually something like a language, right? It is a language. It is a language of value, and it is actually an international language. But you know, coming back to my point, hopping around countries, you come to realize how inefficient it is to going from one currency to another. It's so much friction, you know, it's so insanely inefficient to actually go in so many places, and having to switch so many currencies, you know. With language, that's the same case, but with language, it's a different story, because we have historically been speaking different languages, and we have different cultures and so on and so forth, right? So there's a reason why you have different languages, but there is a universal language, which is English, and there is an emerging universal language for value, which is Bitcoin, right? Which is spreading, and I believe that it's going to become the dominant language for value over time, and we see it play out. I mean, you can see it growing from nothing to something crazy, and then from something crazy to something that people laugh about, and then, you know, learn a little bit about and have a little bit of exposure to, just in case, and then it grows to 10% of their wealth, and then it grows to 50% of their wealth, and then they're like, okay, actually, let me learn about this thing, right? And then it becomes actually a really, really, really big topic for a lot of people. And people like us Bitcoiners, we are already on that Bitcoin standard, and we already speak that language, that universal language of value, that is uncensorable, universal, borderless, and limitless. You know, I was at the Tokyo airport today, Robin. I had to think of our podcast today, that I need to mention that. You know, the number one thing they want to know is, how much cash do you have with you, and if you have any gold bars with you. There's a big sign at the exit, customs exit. How much gold do you have with you, and how much cash do you have with you? And I'm like, well, if I would want to enter this country, I could store $1 billion worth of value into the most superior monetary protocol humanity has ever seen, which is Bitcoin, and I can store it in my brain and just cross the customs, and no one will ever know that I just did that, right? Try to beat that. Try to take $1 billion worth of value from Tokyo to Hong Kong, from Hong Kong to London, from London to Brazil, without anybody even noticing, right? This is, for me, um, like it's like a secret, right? No one knows about it yet. It's still so early. We're at 100K almost. No one is still like taking this serious. No one, even with the president of the United States talking about it, they're not taking it serious. Nobody even is still taking it serious. No one takes the time to understand this technology. And yeah, that's the opportunity, right? That's the opportunity to learn. That's the opportunity to adopt. That's the opportunity to be among the early adopters still. In my opinion, we're still in the 90s. You know, I was orange pilling someone in the airport, in the airplane. It was a Saudi guy, pretty interesting personality, and I was trying to orange pill him, And sorry, I lost the, ich habe den Draht verloren. I lost the what I was just
the
talking
thought,
about.
the lost the thought, yeah.
Yeah,
But
I just lost the thought.
I
What was I saying right
you were
before
saying
I?
about you orange pilled someone on the airplane,
But
and
before that,
before you said something which I loved that you said that something along those lines like Bitcoin is the biggest secret which nobody's trying to hide. That's what I kind of got from it, because you said like it's a secret that like nobody's getting at. So we are so early. I think that's what
oh
you
yeah,
were
now I
getting at.
remember.
Like
Yes, yes,
100K.
yes. Yeah. So now I remember. Yeah. So when I was talking to him, he was like, "But isn't it too late for Bitcoin? Isn't it too late to buy Bitcoin right now?" And I was like, before I answered him, I thought for a second, and I was like, "Look, we're not at $10,000 a coin anymore. We're much higher now. So there could be an argument that you can make that this is already maybe in 2015 of the internet, right? You could make that argument. But then I go to other places like Tokyo at the airport, and I see people still thinking in terms of gold and cash, you know? And then I'm like, no, hell no, we're not there yet, We're not there yet. We're not even near there yet, So I still truly believe that we're in the 90s of the internet. This is still extremely early. The majority is still in deep sleep. They still don't get it. We have to go to much higher valuations until the vast majority of people will get it and will want it and will want to understand it. And some people will not even try to understand it. They will just adopt it. Just like people don't understand the internet today and they adopt it. You don't understand how the internet works, but you use it every single day. You don't understand how your car works, but you use it every single day. You don't know how your fridge works, but you use it every single day, right? And one day there will be a time where no one will understand, just like today, no one needs to understand how Bitcoin works, but people will understand that it's a hard monetary medium. It's never going to expand its supply. It is anti-fragile. It is censorship resistant, and that's all I need to know. I don't need to know how this is accomplished. I know that no one can take this form of money away from me. I can store it securely on a hardware wallet or even on a piece of paper. I don't recommend that, but you could. You could even store it in your head. I also don't recommend that, but you could, right? And you could take that anywhere with you. And that is all you need to understand. And right now, it looks like something too good to be true. This is the stage we're in my opinion, Robin. It still feels for a lot of people when you tell them this thing is finite, no one can take it away from you. You can send it from one place of the planet to another place of the planet. No one can stop you and no one can inflate it, right? And when you tell that to someone, they're like, huh, okay, whatever. Like, it sounds too good to be true. Too good to be true. So people still don't believe it. This is the stage we're in, I think.
I love that framing of it. It seems to be good to be true, because that's actually what a lot of people bring up, like, oh, but that can't be true, like that and that happens. And it's also when people ask me like, oh, are we too late? I always ask, okay, let's say in 2015, the example that you brought up, go 2015 on the street and ask people like, oh, were you on the internet today? And like most people, like, I don't know, like
Yes.
50%, 60%, 80%, whatever, will say, yeah, I was on the internet today. I was like checking WhatsApp. I was on YouTube, like whatever. Ask now on the street how many people made a Bitcoin transaction of those 100 people that you ask. I don't know, like maybe you find one if you're lucky, maybe two. And I think we are before the 2000s in the internet adoption.
Yeah.
If you actually look at the adoption, and then most people that have Bitcoin right now have like a very small amount. Like we too are very crazy people of having so much money in Bitcoin, and
Yeah.
so like it feels it's like a bubble. Like we are in a very small group of people that actually have a lot of wealth, or like percentage wealth of in Bitcoin, but most people don't. Like most people just have like 5%, like 2% in Bitcoin. So we are very far away from being late in Bitcoin, I would say.
Yeah, and it feels right at the beginning to have just a little bit. And it's fine, you know? I really like, if anybody's listening to this and you're like, don't, why are you guys so extreme? You know what? You're right. We will sound extreme if we say we're all in. But I was that person one day who thought exactly that. I was listening to podcasts where I remember it was 2019 or 2020, podcast with Dan Held. You know Dan Held? And he was like, I'm all in Bitcoin. And but back then it was like, I was like, bro, seriously? Like I had a very big amount. Like for me, for myself, that was a big amount, right? I had 50% of my wealth in Bitcoin. And I was like, I'm good, I'm good. I don't want more. I'm more than good, But then this guy comes up and says, I'm all in, you know? And I'm like, this guy is crazy. Like, how does he handle this type of volatility on a day-to-day basis? It's insane. But now I understand him, because once you actually are long enough in Bitcoin, and once you have spent at least, I always say, at least 1,000 hours, at least 1,000 hours, not 100. That's not enough. If you spent 100 hours learning about Bitcoin, you're good with 20 to 50% of your wealth in Bitcoin. But if you have spent at least 1,000 hours studying this topic, and it's not only about Bitcoin, it's about so many things around Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not one topic that you study, it's something that is interconnected with politics, game theory, psychology, markets, finance, so many things. You have to study all of this until you understand why Bitcoin, right? Once you get that idea, you will know that there is no other alternative to be in, and that's when you reach the tipping point of, why nothing else, why Bitcoin only, why nothing else, and that does not mean you should not start a business. I have a business, Robin, you have a business. That doesn't mean you should not do something that you want to, do because you love it, or do something you want to make money with, or take risk, to make more money. That only means that having Bitcoin or gold does not make sense when you understand Bitcoin. That means having Bitcoin and real estate does not make sense when you understand Bitcoin. Same goes for stocks, same goes for any alternative asset that is supposed to play a role in your portfolio to act as a storehold of wealth, right? Because that's what most people are looking for. Most people are not experts in stocks and can read balance sheet statements and understand the product of every single company and do a strategic investment. Who does that, right? The majority of people just want to keep up with inflation. They just want to buy something that stores their wealth over time, and hopefully also over space, right? That's what most people are looking for. And the solution to that problem is Bitcoin, right? So my conclusion after that period, when I listened to all of these podcasts, was that I need to study this more. And the more I studied, the more I bought. And it was a gradual process. It was not like I woke up one day and I was like, I'm going to sell everything and I'm going to buy Bitcoin and nothing else. It was like, I'm going to start with a little bit, then let me have some other coins, maybe they're better than Bitcoin, I don't know yet, right? And then it was like, let me learn a little bit more and buy a little bit more. And then you see that it grows by itself. And then you're like, wait a moment, why do I actually have gold? Let me think over that again. Why do I actually have anything else? And over time, I was like, nothing else makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you always to sudden rethink a lot of things, and you come to a
Yeah.
conclusion. And you said it best, like you're like, okay, what else do I want to hold? Yeah, like my own business. Okay, makes sense. Yeah, maybe I want to own the home that I'm living in. I currently don't do that, and I don't know if I ever want to do that. But if you need it emotionally, and if you want to build that for your family, I think that's a fair one. And then the other thing is like, okay, you maybe also get a better return of investment if you invest in your own knowledge and your own skills, and in your
Absolutely, yes.
family. But other than that, it's like that all other money can just go into Bitcoin. So it's like there's like family, there's like business, there's your own knowledge, there's maybe like getting your time back with like making a vacation or whatever, or a gap year, or whatever you want to do. But other than that, it's like Bitcoin is the best one, and I do like how you framed it with like it's okay to also invest in other things than Bitcoin, but you really have to value those things to make it sense, and not just gamble in some shitcoin casino.
Yes. It's always a question of opportunity cost, right? So what is my opportunity cost of not holding Bitcoin? With gold, it's over 50% because Bitcoin has outperformed gold more than 50%. Okay. With anything, if you measure anything against Bitcoin, it's trending down. So you have to be very, 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 very delicate with what you do if you don't have the money in Bitcoin, right? Unless we're talking about, like, I said that in our first podcast. I'm going to say that again, Robin. There's an exception, which is short-term cash, right? Bitcoin's short-term price action is highly unpredictable. You cannot count on its price action over the short term. Not going to happen. You cannot rely on it. So you have to have some cash savings for the next, I don't know, year, unless you have so much Bitcoin that you don't care. Even if the price crashes, you're fine. That's a different story. But if you cannot sell your Bitcoin, if it goes under, I don't know, $40,000 or $30,000 per Bitcoin, it's just an example number, okay? I'm not giving any type of prediction about anything. But if you do have that in your mind, then you definitely need a cushion of cash that you can sustain a possible bear market, right? Because we know if Bitcoin goes down in a bear market scenario, it goes down really hard and it stays down for a very long period of time. But when it rips up big, right? So that's the only thing that I would maybe encourage everybody to consider if they invest money or if they hold Bitcoin. You need to have some cash on the side in case you need it for whatever reason, because you never know what's going to happen. Maybe you're going to lose your job tomorrow. Maybe you're going to have an accident tomorrow. You never know, right? You need some cash on the side. But one other thing I want to say, Robin, on what you said, which is having something else, right, other than Bitcoin, like a house, for example. My philosophy in life is the following. I believe life is about having experiences, right? You want to have experiences in life. It's all about experiences. It's not about owning something on your name. That doesn't have, for me personally, that does not have any value. That is completely worthless to me. If I can call a house mine because a paper that the government has approved says so, that does not add to my experience of life. You know what I'm saying? What does add value to my life is to experience different things in life that I always want to experience, like traveling, for example, right? Like experiencing a nice house. And I'm not saying having a nice house, I'm saying experiencing a nice house. Why do I use this term? Because you do not necessarily have to own a house to have the experience of using a house. Okay, you can have an amazing house or experience an amazing house by renting it. Why would you do that? Financially, it's much more intelligent to do that, and obviously it depends on your life situation. Maybe you see a house that you love and you can only buy it. That's the only way to experience it. That's a different story. But for most people, the reason they want to own their house is not that. The reason they want to own their house is they think, I want to own something I can touch because that's a good investment. That's a good thing because I can rely on its value. That's the error here, right? Oh, that's a very interesting metric. Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
That's
I
the,
just wanted to bring it up because I think
yes,
it's such an obvious one. No matter what what time frame you're looking at, all houses are crashing down against the Bitcoin price forever since Bitcoin is there.
yes, absolutely. That's the proof, right? No real estate investor wants to look at this, but that's the hard truth. If you price your real estate in terms of Bitcoin, it goes down forever. Forever. It's going to become cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, right? So you have to ask yourself, is it really the experience of using a house that you want in your life, or is it owning a house that you want in your life? For me, it's the experience. So why should I go and put over $3 million in liquidity in a piece of real estate that is completely overpriced because of a bunch of market participants who believe it's a good store of value? Why would I do that? I would rather rent it from the guy who has parked his money into this piece of real estate, have the experience of it, and hold Bitcoin instead. That's a much more intelligent thing to do. Whereas if I want to own that house on paper, I have to sell $3 million worth of Bitcoin. I have to buy the house, and the house goes down in price when you calculate it in Bitcoin terms. Why should I do that, right? So there is no mathematical or logical reason to do this. And the reason why this happens is housing was never meant to be a store of value. Housing was meant to be for housing, for having a house, or a Dach überm Kopf, we say in German, having a roof over your head, right? That's the main purpose of having a house, actually. But because our monetary system is completely distorted and broken, people have used houses as a store of value. That's why they're not priced appropriately. So if you want to buy a house today, you have to pay that premium, right? So right now, and this might change in the future, in maybe 20 years, I don't know. Maybe when we are on a Bitcoin standard, it will be different, right? But right now, houses, most of them are way overpriced. So if you ask me, do I want to have a house? Absolutely. Do I want to buy a house? Absolutely not. Do I want to experience a nice house? Absolutely, yes. How do I afford it? By renting it. And you know what? I will be the free person who can move whenever I want. The guy who owns the house cannot do that. If you own a house, and especially if you have put leverage in it, if you have taken a loan to purchase it because you didn't have the capital to do so, you might think you did an intelligent decision, but you have basically trapped yourself, because now the bank will chase you to pay this off no matter where you go. And you have to make this payment every single month. So you're trapped, you cannot leave. Whereas if I rent the house, I can just cancel this lease anytime I want and leave, right? So you're paying with your freedom, you're paying with your capital, and you're paying with your opportunity cost. So if you consider all of this and still say, but the house costs me less than 1% of my total Bitcoin wealth, and I really want this house, I don't want anything else. I've looked everywhere in the rental market, the house that I want does not exist, then you should buy it, you know. But don't treat it as an investment, because it's not. It's purely not an investment, but a consumption good. In the moment you purchase it to experience it, it's a consumption good, and it should be treated as such. That's my opinion about houses.
Let's take a break for a moment and appreciate the beauty that Coin Vigilante has made with the Bitcoin watches. Those watches are the most amazing, the most elegant way of showing that you are a true Bitcoiner. And Coin Vigilante just dropped a completely new and amazing Genesis edition of their watch collections. You have the date of the first ever mined Bitcoin block in there, and of course also the block height and which epoch we are currently in. I love the level of detail they put in this masterpiece. Make sure to check out those amazing Coin Vigilante timepieces down in the descriptions. I love those watches so much. And now if you have Bitcoin, I really do hope that you don't have it on exchange. But if you do have it on exchange, I have two ways for you to deal with that. The first way is you put it on a hardware wallet. That's the entry for you to get into the self-custody game. I recommend BitBox, Bitcoin only edition, for that. It's a super simple and secure way. And if you check out the link in the description, you even get 5% off if you use the code Robin. And the second way is the Bitcoin Way. The Bitcoin Way is your all-in partner in terms of how to get the most out of your sovereignty. They will personalize for you a self-custody setup that is perfect for your individual situation. They will show you how you can secure your own devices. Securing your Bitcoin is not enough. You also have to keep all your devices secure. One topic that is overlooked often is the inheritance plan. What happens with your Bitcoin once you are no longer here? Do you have a plan for that in place already? And last but not least, if you're in the jurisdictions where you don't feel safe, it's better to get a plan B. For all that, head over to thebitcoinway.com/Robin to get a 30-minute free call. And just a quick side note, I will be for the first time ever speaking at the Bitcoin Prague event in June. It will be absolutely legendary, and I'm really looking forward to seeing all of you there. You can get your ticket in the link down in the description of Bitcoin Prague, and very important, use code Robin to get 10% off your ticket. I'm really looking forward seeing you there. It's crazy that a consumption good can go up over time. It's like it shows how broken our monetary system is. Actually, it's like you buy it, and 5 years later the house is in a worse shape. It needs way more renovation than 5 years ago, and it's worth more. I'm like, oh, okay, that shows that the monetary system is not as good.
It's not worth more. It's priced higher.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It's not.
It's priced higher. Yeah.
It's priced higher, but it's not worth more. That's the problem. And you know, Robin, it's interesting. I mean, in Germany or in Austria, where you live, it's not the case yet. But in my home country, where I am from, in Iran, the same happens with cars already. Like there are cars, you buy them, and because of sanctions and because of supply chain issues and so on and so forth, inflation even happens on cars. Like you might have bought a car 5 years ago that is worth more today than 5 years ago in local currency. That's something unthinkable in Germany. Like in Germany, when you buy a car, immediately after you buy it, it's worth at least 20% less. At least, right? Always. But when the monetary system breaks even further, the distortion becomes so irrational that even cars are mispriced, right? And at the end game of this is that the supply chains will break. Like the supermarkets will be empty. That's a horror scenario of inflation, right? If you look at the hyperinflation that happened in Venezuela, there's pictures on the internet. If you check pre hyperinflation and after hyperinflation, you have the supermarket guy, chubby guy with lots of groceries behind him, and after hyperinflation, he's super slim, almost a skeleton, and behind him the supermarket is almost empty. Like real pictures, the same guy, you know. That's what inflation does. You know, the end game is it breaks the supply chain. You will have less goods in the economy. You will have less available goods in the economy, and it just breaks society. You know, that's the end game of it. But I just hope it won't happen in our lifetime where we live or where we are spending time.
It won't happen if you're personally on a Bitcoin standard. Then you are safe against a lot of these things. Obviously, the world can still be a mess around you, but I do hope. Yeah, I do hope with the houses, which is really interesting. Like, I will be in my mid-40s in 20 years. So now 26, in 20 years, 46. And I hope that at that point, housing is so cheap and recognized as a consumption good, and Bitcoin suck the financial energy out of it, it actually makes sense again to buy a house versus renting it. Because I think if the monetary premium goes down, at some point it makes sense to own things again, because they don't have a monetary premium. It's just a consumption good.
But Robin, that's not going to stop in terms of dollars. But it has already begun in terms of Bitcoin. So this is already, like, for you and for me, this is already reality, because like I love how Jeff Booth puts it. You know, he was already also on your podcast. I think you've also spoken with him about this. He puts it in such a beautiful way. For us, that's already reality. We are already experiencing the real market, which is a consumption good such as a house has to go down in price, not up in price. And if you hold Bitcoin, you are already in that reality. You don't have to wait until you're 40 plus years old until you can experience that. You just have to hold, like, maybe you're not ready to buy the house with your stack, with your Bitcoin stack yet, but you will be at some point. It's just a question of time, right? That's the thing, right? That's the thing. And it's pretty crazy because it actually flips everything in your head. Bitcoin flips everything in your head. It's like, actually, because it's scarce. No, it's actually not scarce, right? It's finite. So because it's finite, over time, it actually has to decrease over time. Your stack has to decrease over time. Okay, you have to be very productive that it increases over time. But at some point, it has to decrease over time, because at some point, you're going to start consuming rather than producing, right? You will be at some point a net consumer, because you're going to age, because you're going to produce less at some point, right? So at some point, it will go down, right? But it will buy also more over time. That's the beauty of Bitcoin.
Will also be fun, like with employees and stuff like that, where all of a sudden the employer has to argue for a lower salary each year.
Yes.
Because the prices will go down, but they get maybe less satoshis, but the satoshis buy more than previous years, so they have more purchasing power. but less nominal satoshis. In the comparisons of what we have now, they get more nominal euros, but less purchasing power than last year. So it will be a fun thing though, in a Bitcoin world where the employer has to argue like we need less, we need to lower your salary.
Yeah, and I think we are on a really, really, really fast trajectory to that reality because of the macro environment, because of what we're seeing. Like, would you have guessed just a year ago that the president of the most wealthy country in the world would think about putting Bitcoin in its strategic reserve? That's absolutely insane. Like, if you would have told me that a year ago, I would have said, are you like, and I'm a Bitcoiner, right? I really believe in Bitcoin. But I would have said, are you nuts? That's not going to happen. Like, all of us, we were saying, yeah, probably you will have El Salvador, country likes adopting this first, and then maybe America will be the last to adopt because they have the most to lose because of the dollar, right? That's what everybody was saying. But today we just had what's the name of the guy?
The Howard Lutnick.
Yeah, Howard Lutnick, who is the crypto strategic reserve responsible. I don't know. Is he the secretary of? What's his role in the government?
It's the Secretary of Commerce,
Secretary of Commerce.
Howard
Yes.
William Lutnick, and is the 41st United States Secretary of Commerce since this year,
Yeah.
basically.
So he is in charge among David Sachs, I believe, to basically take care of this strategic Bitcoin / crypto reserve. Okay. And he just announced, by the way, that cryptos will not be included in that strategic reserve. They will be treated friendlier than before, but they will not be included. It doesn't make even Brian Armstrong, who is the biggest shitcoiner of all shitcoiners, who's the CEO of Coinbase, says we should not have altcoin reserve or even any altcoin in the strategic reserve of the US. So just to get that out of the way, I believe it will be at least mainly over 95% Bitcoin strategic reserve. Nothing else. Nothing else makes sense. Nothing. But it's absolutely insane to even think about that this is happening. I think people are not bullish enough. They still don't understand what's happening. And if the US does this, Russia will follow. If Russia follows, China will follow. If China follows, South Korea will follow. Everybody will follow. If the US follows, everybody will follow. Everybody will FOMO in.
Yeah, and I just wanted for the people that maybe don't know what we're talking about. I think it just came out yesterday. This podcast will come out 1 or 2 weeks later, so it will be maybe already old news. But he basically said that Bitcoin strategic reserve is something that the president is interested in, and it will be probably executed this Friday, so in 2 days, so 1-2 weeks ago when you see this now. And what's really interesting is Bitcoin is one thing, and then the other currencies, the other crypto tokens, I think will be treated differently, positively, but differently. So that's really, really important. And that's where I had a little bit of a problem with the first announcement of Donald Trump of like we add Solana and Ethereum and all those things. Like, this clear line between Bitcoin and crypto that was made the last years, which is super positive and super important, was kind of getting washed away again. And thankfully, Howard Lutnick and hopefully also the president now draws that line again of like, there is Bitcoin, and then there's everything else. We need that line is super important, especially in my opinion, for people that are new and enormous, because I remember when I came into Bitcoin, the first question after I kind of understood Bitcoin, I was like, okay, what is with all the other current coins? And then I was researching Ethereum, researching all the other tokens, and I was like, oh, okay, that's so confusing. And then I was like, okay, let's focus on Bitcoin. But if we really separate that out, then it makes more sense. If you research gold, you don't start the research like, oh, like this other token also. So you really need to get it done. And I think Howard Lutnick did a great job with that.
Yeah, he's a Bitcoiner. He's a Bitcoiner. He really is a Bitcoiner. I think he was on Pompliano's podcast before he was part of the government, and he made some insane statements about Bitcoin. I think he has billions of dollars personally in Bitcoin. You know, he's a very, very, very pro Bitcoin personality, and he's in charge of this strategic reserve. So, yeah, I think by the time this podcast will air, we probably will already have an announcement about the strategic reserve, and the price will be maybe higher, maybe lower. I don't know. I'm not gonna speculate, but
It's dangerous, like now.
yeah, it's like, I don't know, man. Maybe it will be a sell the news event. You never know. You never know. Yeah.
But yeah, but it really also depends. For like short term market demands, it really depends on like how he phrases things and how Trump is announcing it. So you really never, like, you have no clue what's going to happen in 2 weeks. But we can know directionally what will happen in the next 20 years. We also talked about that last time, actually, not the strategic Bitcoin reserve, but about the gradually and then suddenly phase. How much closer are we now to the suddenly phase? I think last time you said we are still in the gradual phase. What happened? I think the last time we were on was like July, so it's more than half a year away already. What would you say happened kind of like in the last few months?
The thing is, Robin, I have a very nuanced opinion about this gradually then suddenly moment. I think this is because Bitcoin is a global monetary asset. You will have suddenly moments in some places and still gradual moments in some other places. You know, gold did not do that, and the reason why gold did not do that was because gold was local. Gold was not able to travel. Okay, this is why gold took thousands of years to be adopted, right? This thing lives on the internet, so this thing is in one place a store of value, in another place still a nothing burger, and in a different place already a medium of exchange, right? So it is very hard to say where it's going to go. But let me say it that way. If a government like the United States has someone like Michael Saylor as one of the people who advises right now the SEC, and who is invited to the crypto event of the president of the US to talk about this topic. And if you have spent maybe 3 or 4 podcasts with Saylor, or listened to him, or listen to Robin's podcast with Saylor, I highly recommend that episode. Anybody listening, go back and listen to that one. It's a really good one. If you've listened to that person, you know that this person is extremely convincing and has the most amount of incentive to make this happen. Okay, and really understands this topic, right? So they have really good people around them. David Sachs, I'm not really sure if I trust that guy. He's been into Solana before, and I know that he had a bag of Solana that he dumped on retail on their podcast with the other guys, with his billionaire friends and so on and so forth. I'm not sure about him, but I'm pretty sure that you have people like Saylor who are very close to the government right now, and they are going to educate these people. And if these people in these type of positions are educated on this topic, I think you're going to see a wave of adoption that is no, I should phrase it differently. It's not called adoption, because adoption is something that you see on on the real economy, right? Adoption will be slower than this, okay? But this is going to pump the price of Bitcoin very rapidly up, because the amount of money that can go into the Bitcoin network, if a government like the United States decides to buy it, is freaking insane if you compare it to adoption. Okay, adoption, very, very important distinction here. Like, we can have a gradually then suddenly moment for the price of Bitcoin, but not a suddenly moment in the adoption of Bitcoin. Although one helps the other, right? Because if the price of Bitcoin goes up, you will also have more people adopting it. But you don't know if it's a healthy adoption or a speculative adoption, right? Speculative adoption is not good, right? It's a bubble, right? We don't like speculative adoption. But long story short, I think if this strategic reserve is announced and executed, it's going to boost the price of Bitcoin. It's going to increase the probability of us having a wave of new people pouring in, just like we do every 4 years. And I know everybody said that in the last cycle. I know everybody said that in the cycle before that, but I'm going to say it again. We might have a cycle where, because of derivatives, because of the massive micro situation or macro situation that we have worldwide, because of governments now being involved, that we don't see such a dreadful bear market like we did last time. It is possible. I'm not saying we're not going to see corrections, but a bloodbath we saw last time for over 2 years with 70+% drawdown, right? It is possible that we're not going to see a repetition of that. It's not out of the table, but it is possible. And that's, for me, a suddenly moment, if you ask me. That's a suddenly moment.
It's interesting. Yeah. Also the distinction between price and adoption, which is very different, even though they influence themselves, but it's a very different of like how many people actually have already a hardware wallet versus what is the price of Bitcoin. I'm sure they're somehow correlated, but they are it's not the same thing, because if the price shoots up tomorrow 50%, I'm sure that hardware wallet sales will also not go up 50%, because they take longer. Like, just because the price shoots up, like there's some correlation, but like also some lag and some some actual physicality in there also.
Usually hardware wallet sales goes up when there's a hack on an exchange.
Oh,
That's
really?
when
Nice.
that's when hardware wallet sales goes up.
So Bybit was good.
Yeah, every hack on an exchange is good for self-custody adoption.
Which brings me also to my last topic actually today. We talked in July last time, and I think for 21st Capital, a lot has happened the last couple of months. For the people that don't know about 21st Capital or what you're doing, what are you doing, and what kind of have you worked on in the past couple of months?
So we started 21st with with the vision of helping individuals and companies to store their Bitcoin in a very, very secure way without the downside of self-custody. And we use a very innovative way to do that, which basically puts the user in complete control, but without the risk of actually losing their coins ever, right? And that was initially the vision. And we started with just, a few clients, and we got really great feedback ever since. And we have now, I can with confidence say, over 20 Bitcoin ever since I spoke with you last time, of growth in doing a collaborative custody with clients. And the obviously we don't hold the Bitcoin, right? It's a collaborative custody model, but we do have safety net or rescue keys available in case the clients lose their Bitcoin, right? That's what we are solving basically. And we really believe that this is the future of doing self-custody, because self-custody is just not secure over long periods of time for the average user, right? Normally, exchanges have abused this insecurity, and they have advised clients to not withdraw their coins, which is good for them because they can work with the money, right? But our approach is we have built a platform for people to be able to take self-custody very securely through our help, and with safety rescue backups that will help them in case they're in an emergency, in case they lose their keys, in case they pass away, in case they forget something. There's so many things that can happen, because if you are long enough in Bitcoin, this is not something you hold for a year. This is something you want to hold for generations, right? So we really try to help people to build a very robust inheritance plan, a very bulletproof inheritance plan, and we take a very personalized approach, right? We don't have an approach that is universal for everybody, right? So the inheritance protocols with us are different for each client, because we look at their circumstance, we look at their concerns, we look at their geographical locations, we look at so many things, and define the inheritance plan based on that. So that's what we do. And when we were talking in July last year, it was pretty much the beginning when we launched the product. And I can really proudly say, obviously, you were also a big help for us, Robin, by also recording podcasts with us and actually spreading the word and coming on our podcast. And thank you for that, by the way. It's really helping us to spread the word that people need to take self-custody. We're really passionate about this. And yeah, that's what we do. That's what we do. And if anybody is interested to find out more about this, just visit our website, 21stcapital.com. Just 21, the letter, the number 2, number 1, ST capital altogether.com. And you can schedule a demo or a consultation with us, and we are going to show you how the system can help you secure your Bitcoin.
I think that's the website. I got that right.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Really cool. Yeah, I love that. Cool. I mean, it's really cool what you have done, because just in under a year, there's been a lot going on, and I've talked consistently with you. So I think it's a really cool service that you've done, and I'm not seeing anyone else do it in that exact way, which is really fascinating. And if I think the most important thing for me always is we need as many different ways of self-custody, so we can actually get it to be mainstream in Bitcoin. Because what I have found is self-custody isn't even mainstream within the Bitcoin community. Most Bitcoiners don't really hold their keys, which kind of frustrates me of why not? Like, why are they not going to do that when it's so obvious? When there's like exchanges hacked all the time, when there's rug pulls, when there's like FTX, there's so many famous examples of people losing their keys while having losing their Bitcoin while having it on exchange. Yeah, and then the whole if you hold it on exchange, you only get number go up and not freedom go up technology, and that whole fundamental part. So yeah, I'm always supporting any product and service which promotes self custody in any way, shape, or form, and I do like it. So you have a really nice service product approach of like there's like a service and a product, because there are some things like the BitKey that's kind of more of a product, not a service, and then there are pure services. So that's really interesting. So yeah, thank you so much for
I
doing
would,
that.
yeah, I would call it more a service than a product, because it actually is really uh, designed for people who, I'm going to be very transparent about this. If you don't hold much Bitcoin, it's probably not worth doing this, because it's just a very, very, very white gloved service for somebody who is very concerned about security and wants to store his Bitcoin in an extremely secure way for a very long period of time. That's what this service is perfect for. So we built actually something we wish somebody offered us when we started our journey in Bitcoin. That's what we offer.
Is there a number of satoshis or a number of Bitcoin that you're like, it makes sense to do it your way right now? Obviously, when Bitcoin goes up, those numbers change probably. So it's a dynamic number. But is there something that you have in mind of like, okay, if you have more than that stack, it probably makes sense to
It
look into
is,
it?
yeah. The thing is, Robin, it actually depends not only on the stack amount, but also on the person or company, right? So if you, let me give you an example. If you are in your 60s and you have zero point 0.2 Bitcoin, and that's all the Bitcoin you have, and that's all your wealth, actually, you don't have more. And that's not little money. It's like almost $20,000, right? Then you should do this. And it's not that expensive, by the way, like maybe $1,000 and that's it. And every year, maybe $300. That's not a lot, right? But then you have a service that is there in case you forget things, because at that age it's so important that you do this right. Because if you forget something, if you lose your memory, if you lose your keys in any way, then it's a huge problem. But for example, if you have one Bitcoin and you're in your 30s, and that's like nothing to you, even if you lose that one Bitcoin, you're very wealthy, you have a couple of $1,000,000, that's nothing to you. Then maybe if you do a single sig on your own, maybe it's fine. I would still do it, but maybe it's fine for now, right? But as soon as you reach a percentage of, let's say, 5 or 10% of your wealth, then it's a significant amount of your portfolio. And it also depends if you're a speculator, if you're a tourist, or if you're a Bitcoiner who wants to hold this thing for many, many years, right? That's also a question. So if you're a speculator, don't do this. It's probably not for you, right? If you just want to buy Bitcoin, hold it for a couple of months and sell it again, probably best to hold it on an exchange even, right? But if you want to store a percentage that really matters to you and your portfolio, and you take self-custody serious, and you want to build checks and balances and security protocols that protect you in case of a disaster, then it's the right thing to do, for sure.
Absolutely. And it's an interesting point of like, it does not only matter what the stack amount is, it also matters like how significant that amount to you is. Because for someone, one Bitcoin could be their whole life savings, and for someone else, one Bitcoin is almost nothing because they have so much other wealth. So that's an interesting comparison. Yeah.
And who you are, and who you are. If you are, for example, we had a client a few weeks ago. He's new in Bitcoin, and he just booked our service to learn self custody. Like he doesn't have much Bitcoin. He has only $10,000, and it's nothing to him. But he wants to learn the journey. That's why he booked the service, to learn how this works, right? So if you're also new to Bitcoin, you want to learn how self custody works. This is like the best rabbit hole. It's like a best crash course you can take to learn self custody. And maybe after a year, you say, actually, I don't need this. I'm young. I'm going to do the protocol on my own. You don't need the service. You can use it for a year, and after a year say, I don't need the rescue key. I don't need it. I don't need the service necessarily. I'm going to do this on my own. Also possible.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Learning, it's like a paid learning journey, because some people might have money but not the time to learn it themselves, and so they can basically pay for a paid learning journey. And what better way to do it like that?
Exactly.
Really cool. We have one question that I ask each and every one of my guests, and the question is, what can we learn from you besides Bitcoin?
Oh gosh, you asked me that, I think, last time already.
Yeah, I think it's really hard for returning guests. Maybe I have to do a second thing for returning guests, because
No, I
then they
like
have to keep up with new things.
No, I like the question because it's also a little bit philosophical. Listen, I'm a believer of, I think you will have a much easier time in life if you believe in yourself. If you really, really believe in yourself, and I love how you say it. I think you said it in one of your podcasts with us, or I don't know. I saw you somewhere say that the best investment that you can make is in yourself, right? And by doing that, you will find out that it's also the best thing to educate yourself. And by doing that, you will realize that you will gain something we call self-confidence. And self-confidence will make navigating life in general so much easier, so much easier. You will earn the respect of others. You don't have to demand respect from others. You will earn it, and you will get it by default. You don't have to ask for it. It goes without saying. But to get there, you have to invest in yourself. You have to put the time to educate yourself. You have to put the time to clear your mind from time to time. You have to put the time to cleanse your body from time to time, and to take care of your relationships from time to time. So I always say it's mind, reading, educating, listening to podcasts of Robin and others, learning about Bitcoin, right? Stuff like that. The heart, all your relationships with your parents, with your loved ones, with your friends, all of these, keeping the connect, because we're social beings, right? So mind, heart, spirit, clear your mind from time to time, whether it's through meditation, some form of religion. You can call it whatever you want. Something that connects you with your upper self, if you will, higher self, if you will. Okay. And last but not least, your body. Watch what you put in your mouth, and take care of what God has given you, this precious body that will not exist for very long, right? It's a gift from the divine that you need to protect. And what's the best way to protect it? Don't give it crap food, and exercise regularly. That's what I can say about anything other than Bitcoin.
That's beautiful. Really cool. And actually, I mentioned it, I think, 2 weeks ago on the live stream, on your live stream with Momo, of where I invested, or I was prepared to invest my Bitcoin into making my Bitcoin journey happen. But luckily, I never had to do that because I had cash flow from the day one, basically. But I was prepared to pay myself from my Bitcoin stack to make that thing happen. And we kind of went into the journey of like how Bitcoin enabled me to do that. So if people are interested in it, they can just go to 21st Capital, probably like one of the latest podcasts, or like a few weeks back, you can find it, or just 21st Capital and Robin Seyr, probably on YouTube it will pop up. But that was a really interesting talk, and it's so beautiful also how you said it and framed it right now. Really cool. We have, as you know, an routine in the podcast where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest, and I can't this question never came up, but it's a really cool one, and I'm really looking forward to what a Bitcoiner like yourself also says to that. What's your favorite shitcoin?
Oh, that's a difficult one.
Yeah, I when he told me this, I was like, oh gosh, like I don't have one.
Poor next guest. Poor next guest. What's my favorite shitcoin? It has to be blunt and just a simple answer, right? I cannot ask for any form of definition. Okay.
Yeah, because the previous guest is not here, so that's the
Yeah,
difference.
yeah. What's my favorite shitcoin? The answer is gold.
Gold. I love that. I thought briefly also about real estate.
No, gold. You know, Robin, I really, from time to time, I'm really honest right now with you on a really serious note. Sometimes when I do some form of meditation or I reflect on the past 6 or 7 years, I sometimes think to myself, like, what would we Bitcoiners believe in if Bitcoin didn't exist? Like, what would we do without this technology? We would be probably some gold maximalists who run around and, try to orange pill people about gold, So, yeah, I mean, with all the things we say about gold, I think gold is the second best, or the best shitcoin, because anything other than Bitcoin is a shitcoin. Anything, and for me, my favorite shitcoin among all the shitcoins is gold.
I love that. Really cool. I mean, I think I would actually be still a stock pro, because I was a stock pro before, and Bitcoin kind of converted me to the sound money thing. I always dismissed gold as useless before, and kind of Bitcoin explained to me the value of gold, and now I get the value of gold because of Bitcoin. So I think without Bitcoin, I would still buy like Tesla stock and all of those.
Yeah.
Which was also probably a good
It's
trade.
it's very hard to say how you would think if things were differently. It's very difficult to
It's impossible.
Put yourself. Yeah, it's impossible. It's very difficult to judge that.
Absolutely, yeah. Really cool. Thank you so much, Ruzbeh, for being on. It was a pleasure having you on a second time. Before I let you go, you already showed the company before, but if people want to reach out to you personally, where can they reach you?
Yeah, you can send me a message on Twitter, on X at RKBTC. Very simple, RKBTC. That's my handle. I'm sometimes I'm late, but I do respond to DMs. So if anybody wants to reach out to me, send me a message there. Or if anybody's interested to schedule a demo with us, with 21st Capital, it's free. Just schedule a call, and we'll more than happy to get to know you and show you around.
Thank you so much for being on. Also, thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye.